Okay, so I've done the drawing and now it's just time for the grisaille. I'm just going to hopefully show, yeah, at least sort of a rough outline of that. So as usual, just to prepare the surface, I'm going to just quickly brush on some of this, or it's taking some of the pencil off. So this is just a medium that I use, which is M. Graham's Alkyd, walnut Alkyd. So I like Alkyd just simply because it dries quickly. So this will be dry in 48 hours. I'll be able to work on it again. And it just sort of makes the surface a little bit slicker. So I'll just sort of brush some on, and then I'm going to take a cloth, which hopefully I can find a clean patch of. Yeah, so the drawing's still okay. Don't want it to be too much on the surface. I'm only going to do the face today. So that's the only bit I'm doing. But if it's too oily, it's just not very nice. You can use any medium you want. It's just I only use, as I said, the Alkyd because it dries quickly. But it's just an oil. So stand oil, linseed. Right, yeah, that is just disappearing slightly. I hope you can see it. Oh, I'll spill that. Okay, so that's done. You can just see it still. So I'll just use this same brush. I haven't got the palette showing, but here's my palette anyway. Some juicy splodges of titanium white and ivory black. So I'll just hold it here. You know, I hope it's still going to be valuable. I'm not very methodical in my approach necessarily. You know, I don't have an academic training, so I know there's a value scale of 1 to 9 or something like that, and you might go with your darkest darks first. We'll see. That's just something that I'm just going to try and improvise with, because the thing about glazing is that the glazes will darken the grisaille a lot, so the grisaille has to be lighter. I can't just make a grey image. I can't just you know, use some software to change this coloured image into a monotone version of itself, because the colours themselves will actually appear darker. So it doesn't really work. So I just have to sort of look at it, and you know, one thing I've sort of learned is that it's got to be pretty light. You know, at least a couple of value numbers lighter than you know, what you might actually think. So all I'm just going to do now is just sort of block it in a bit. I might have been a lot more careful about this in the past, but just with practice I've just come to realise that, as I said, it's just to be able to sort of create something that's, you know, a lot lighter. I'm talking absolute nonsense now, and I do apologise. It's just trying to sort of concentrate, you know, the nerves knowing that I'm being filmed and trying to just work it all out at the same time. It's sometimes a bit tricky. So please bear with me if I just talk complete rubbish. I hope it makes sense to a point. I might have to be a bit quiet. I might add some commentary afterwards, but just at the moment I'm just going to be slightly quiet while I just try and concentrate here. Because I can see there's this, you know, I need to sort of think about this shadow area under her brow and just before her lid. So that's why I'm just not going into that space yet. It's a lot. I think it's going to be a lot lighter. Just a tiny bit of medium, but there's medium on the surface, so I don't need to worry so much. I think it's just going to be too dark, and the paint's getting a bit thick. just because that's the right colour. I think I'm just going to put some there. I don't like working with it when it's the paint feels a little bit dry, so it's nice to just add a little bit of medium in. And I'll just add white and literally mix it on the surface. And as I said, it's all guesswork now. Glazes will just darken it to such a degree that even though, you know, I suppose the reason I chose this particular painting and this sort of the portrait within the painting is because, you know, her face is generally in shadow, and that's just one of the most, that's the sort of very beautiful quality that Bouguereau had in some of his paintings, where you've just got these very, very cool shadows with obviously this warm tones in her cheeks, and her ears very warm, and so, you know, it's just a great, it just seemed to match with the sort of way I've been doing glazing up to a point, and I just think hopefully I'll be able to sort of get something quite close to it, but I don't want to rush. I'm using a hog's hair brush. I guess any kind of brush is okay. What I'm trying to say is that this is dark enough because with a glaze such that I'm going to do, where, you know, the whole shadow area around her forehead, that could just go over this sort of tone, this tone. Just so it could be done, hopefully, you know, purely by glazing. There will be distinctions here, and obviously this area is going to be quite dark, so it will be darker than this, but I don't think the cheeks need to be any darker at all, and so it will end up looking at this stage fairly light. The grisaille is something that I will work on a couple of times. There'll be a couple of glazes of the grisaille itself, so just to sort of try and refine it. It just means you're spending a little bit longer, but just purely to show, I'll just maybe show just like the first coat of this, maybe in a couple of videos. So I just got to make sure her nose is quite light, but just following this line here that I've drawn. Just assume for now that that's accurate. At the moment I'm just trying to sort of put down a marking post. I mean, that's going to be much lighter than that. While just keeping an eye on the drawing. It's an opportunity just to check where I was with it. It's just going to be the darker area, but I guess, you know, that could probably just simply be done with, you know, like a, you know, a lovely glaze of, it's going to be, it looks like sort of black and a bit of red or something like that, or, you know, for me I would use, probably I won't use too much crimson. But yeah, something like a black and a red just for the area where just this sort of bit of hair just by her ear. I don't want to say sideburns. Sorry, that wasn't a gunshot. I think that was a balloon from my daughter's birthday party bursting. It's very light around here. The whole nose is pretty light. It'd be quite good. Later I can use a dry brush just to pull some of the paint off if it's got too thick. Now this is something I'm trying to avoid. I don't want it to be too dark here because I know that glaze will be sufficient. So I'll just have to go over that again, or yeah, use some lighter paint. Just being able to do it, so I still need to be able to see the drawing. I think this bit could definitely be a bit darker. And this will be dark. I might as well do this quite dark for now. Just do it so that I can keep an eye on the drawing. Just turns in here ever so slightly. Through this one and begins to turn around there. I think I better eat something to stop my stomach rumbling. Oh gosh. Again, it's just being careful. You know, it's a bit crude where I've painted the jawline, so just it's quite subtle in the paint, in the actual painting. This is something I really wanted to try and do. I could just see, you know, with the ear, you know, I'm sure it's just really easy, just, well, not easy, but just simple in the sense that it's just a glaze of a dark red glaze, and that's all just over a fairly light underpainting. It's got to have some indication on the underpainting. It can't be completely flat, but I can. Yeah, it should be. I'm really looking forward to doing that anyway. know what my neighbour's doing. At this stage, it always looks very strange and not at all like the actual picture, but you just have to sort of hold your nerve. So let's just... This is what I meant by just being careful when I've drawn the shadow, that, you know, I've just got to draw it again. It's, you know, if it's too much, it's just not going to be right. Just got a smaller brush. And I know her eyebrows are very black, but I'm just doing it a value or two off, maybe one value, so that I can achieve that with the glazing as well. It might be more efficient actually just to paint it completely black, but I think it's richer if it's done with the glazing. All of this area is very, very dark, which makes it hard to draw and just make, maintaining the distinctions between the forms, model the forms. It's not a very good brush, that. I need a small, I must get small brushes. So you've got to just trust where you drew before you checked it, it's right. So not sort of, there's no need to change it. Just something sometimes I can do. And obviously the grid starts to disappear, so as you're drawing it, you've just got to use some of these edges and just like follow along. Because this shadow is actually right down. The grid's useful, but it's just important also not to get too stuck on the grid, and just remember that you're drawing a face. So you know the eyelid it's following the curvature of the eyeball. So it's just to be aware. Just otherwise it doesn't get mechanical, but it's just to remember what you're actually drawing sometimes, and not just focus only on the grid. It's much easier later to work from light to darken things as opposed to lightening things, which is why it's so good. If the grisaille is lighter, then you can add glazes and you can do it completely at your own pace. So it could be very subtle glazes that don't really darken at all, and then you glaze on top of that, and then some. You can glaze 10 times or something. I might do it a bit quicker just because it's a video and I just want to sort of show it being done, but it can be broken into lots of different stages. But as I said, much easier to darken slowly as a lightning. You can do it, but it's just I found it harder anyway. So again, I'm just looking for this where the eyebrow, it actually passes through the intersection of this little rectangle here. It's in the corner of that, it's in the second one down, it's mainly in the second one down, sort of halfway across that. That's right up. So I didn't mention it before, but I'm just trying to be aware of the structure of the face. So this is, you know, the cheekbone is coming around, so it's not flat. I don't want it to be flat. I think something like that is sort of going to get close to what I'm hoping the final grisaille will be like. Not too dark. That's the point. And just keeping the differences in values, you know, between the transitions. It is obviously going to be darker under the nose here, but not really dark. I don't want it to be too much. It's got to be quite subtle. It's something that I'm going to pick up with the glazes. And it starts to get, when there's paint all over the area of the face, that's when you know, the modelling can sort of, it's just more enjoyable, because you can start to blend the paint and move it around a bit. But it can be quite crude still, because the glazing further sort of deepens the drawing, and the glazing models the forms as well. I don't know if any of this is really going to work in the end, but we'll see. Hopefully it's all a learning process. possibly too dark. I'm a bit scared of doing this transition around the eye and then the line of the nose. It's got to be really dead on, because there's obviously shadow on this side as well. It's not just so clear cut. You see, it's really subtle the way he's drawn it and modelled it. Possibly I should just be using a sable, but I just like the feel of a hog's hair. So I'm just going to stick with that for now, and then when we really want to start refining it, or maybe I'll just do the sable when it comes to the glazes. Again, it's just so subtle here, there's not even, you can see the line of the jaw, but it's not something I need to draw. I said initially that it's probably going to be roughly life size, but this is probably twice actual size of the original painting, I guess. I think the original painting was 80 centimetres across, so it's going to be sort of, if it's 80 centimetres across, I think this ended up being sort of an eighth of that, so it's approximately 10 centimetres just for the face, but this is more like 20. It's interesting that the chin is in shadow above the neck, just in this area, and then in highlight against the neck, just as it turns around. What should I do? There's just a line of collarbone around here, but just so subtle you can hardly see it at all. And actually, I mean, I didn't put any oil medium just on this bit of surface. I should have done that. I just imagined that I'd only do the head. But it's good to just see it in context. Just put a bit more paint on. Again, shouldn't be too dark. But then if it is, you know, slightly darker, you know, it's still not nearly as dark as the original painting, and then maybe I don't need to sort of be too heavy on the glaze, and it can just be still quite subtle, and it just picks up. That's the beautiful thing about Grisaille, is that you can just see it through the glazes, so it's a wonderful optical effect where it functions like stained glass. So it's sort of just the line of the neck. I have to be really subtle with these glazes because I do think it's a bit dark. Okay, it gets much lighter around here. And obviously with the glazes you do use glazes to create the highlights, sort of scumbling where there is going to be white involved. And you know, it's something I'll have to do here just to pick up the highlights. And this is just being a bit lazy, to be honest, because I changed my brush and it would be fine, but I didn't bother. Just around the lip, it's very, very dark just in this area, and then just slightly lighter where it just picks up the light and sort of turning towards the viewer. And actually, whenever I would paint a grisaille, I would always go over it a couple of times, so it's sort of blocking in, and I'll check the drawing and just refine it. So personally I don't find it very easy to do it all in one go. It's quite good just to give yourself a break and then and come back to it. So it's definitely sort of most of this little rectangle that I can't really see. I can just about make it out. I need quite a just quite a fine brush to pick out this line. I can see the line in my drawing which is further over. There's definitely shadow on the nose. So yeah, the drawing was right, didn't feel right for a moment. So I should sort of clean my brushes and dry them, and then start to pick some of the paint off, because it just feels like there's too much on to blend in some lighter areas. But I've got a rough handle on some of the tones of the shadows, as dark as I want it to get. Oh, that's not very good. That should just really be with a glaze. lighter in there. Blends in a bit. This is halfway across the shadow, folds around the chin. That's too much though. I can see he's just created these shadows though with the glaze, which is why that's what I'm trying to learn. Is it the grisaille or is it only the glaze? That in a nutshell is what I'm after. Is it the glaze that, what I mean is it the glaze that creates the shadow, or is it the grisaille that creates the shadow first? Because looking at that I can just see that it's full of, the shadows are full of colour, which means that possibly it feels like, just looking at it, that it was all almost monotone and then it's just all modelled with glaze. So I'll find out. I don't know. No one really knows. And honestly I can't actually see what's going on in here, this shadow area, so it's just going to be just blended in. There is a lot more. So it's that line. It's just top lip, just can't be any darker than that. Maybe it's so close that it possibly doesn't matter. I can just literally blend the two in. Just go away from that for a bit. It's quite often if I'm stressed about a particular area of a portrait or any painting, just go, let's go have a bit of light relief. Just do something, do some straightforward blocking in. Without too much worry. I mean, all ears are different, but I don't have to be quite so fussy about the ear as I have to about the lip or the eyes, the expression, those sorts of things. Yeah, the really, really subtle bits. Seems to sort of bulge out here a bit. Definitely goes beyond the line. And then back to sort of around there. It's too much paint. and only time will tell if these glazes are too dark to begin, if these areas of grisaille are too dark to begin with. But that would be really good, because if it all goes wrong, then you just know what to do for next time. So either way, it's going to be a win-win. What will really help is just painting the hair, actually, so I might do that. Take my mind off everything else. Personally, I haven't got the patience to do really fine modelling. I'm not very good at it. So it's definitely going to be cruder than the original. Quite often I just mix paint straight on. Okay, yeah. I think this is a bit wrong. It's fairly crude, but I'm just going to have to come back to it because unfortunately I've run out of time for today. So I've just got to let it dry. Ideally I'd spend longer just modelling it. So after letting that coat dry, I worked on the grisaille again for another 2 hours, and this is the result. I've blocked in the hair just with a black and carried on modelling the forms of the face and the shoulders, and I think I will definitely give it another go on the grisaille before doing any glazing, but I'll show the glazing in the next video.